Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Tuesday, March 3, Super Tuesday, Super Council meeting. We'll go ahead and get started tonight by reading our roll.
Councilmember Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Here.
Kylie?
Here.
Neitsert?
Here.
Selberg?
Here.
Sale?
Here.
Starr?
Here.
Staley? Here.
All right, tonight we are pleased to have Pastor Rick Carlson back with us from Prairie Hills Covenant Church. He's going to give our invocation. I'll put in a quick plug for your concert, the March 27 and 28. The One Sioux Falls is a community choral concert at the Ann Summervold Hall in the Pavilion, correct? Yeah, great community event. So if you need something to do, Rick and his team are helping lead that event. So you're going to rise for our invocation and then stay standing for our Pledge of Allegiance.
I would like to give a gift also to the council that I have vouchers for free tickets. You're going to enjoy it, believe me. And please come. I wish I had vouchers for everybody, but please come. It's going to be a blast and wonderful.
If they're less than $50, we can accept them.
It's a voucher. It's
Okay, good.
A free
Then
voucher.
we're good.
Yeah. Well, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks that we can be in a place where people can talk about important things, where people of distinction and honor listen and carefully look at and make sure that they are doing what is just and good for this community. We pray for these people tonight, these women and men who have devoted their lives to doing good for this community, and pray that you would give them wisdom and that you would give them creativity even beyond their experience. And we pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Big chair.
All right. Thank you, Pastor Rick. We'll move on to item 4, which is our consent agenda approval.
Move to approve Erickson.
Second, Kylie.
All right, motion to approve by Erickson, seconded by Kylie. Any discussion on that, council? All right, we'll take a vote on that, please.
Councilmembers Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson? Yes. Kylie?
Yes.
Neitsert?
Yes. Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That passes 8-0. We'll move on to item 38, which is our regular agenda.
Move to approve Erickson.
Second, Kylie.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Erickson.
if I can make a motion to amend the regular agenda by moving item 60 to immediately follow item 45.
Second.
All right, motion by Erickson on that, seconded by Councilor Kylie. Any discussion on that? All right, we'll vote on that, please.
Councilmember Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitsert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
All right, so we're at the amended motion now. Are any other changes? All right, seeing none, we'll take a vote on the amended motion.
Councilmember Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitsert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. We're at our general public input portion of our agenda for tonight. As a reminder, input during this portion will last no more than 3 minutes per person, and in total last no more than 30 minutes. During general public input, the public is welcome to speak on any topic that does not appear later on in the agenda. For regular agenda items following general public input, comments are limited to 3 minutes, unless the item is being presented for final adoption, in which case public input is limited to 5 minutes. For all regular agenda items, comments are limited to the agenda item under consideration only. So at this time, I'd like to invite any members of the public forward for general public input. Clerk, please note our time right now is 7:05. Good evening.
Hello, Mayor and Council. I was walking up here. I haven't walked like that in a long time. Phew. I've said this like a long time ago, okay? When I was here last time, I heard about, which I have no problem in helping the homeless, which, cool. But in order to help someone, they gotta want help. They have to take the initiative to get on their foot and go. Yeah, we have the gospel mission, we have the Dooley House, but when they stand on the corner, my job is actually hiring right now. And there's a lot of opportunities, but life's not free. The world don't owe you a living. You have to work for the living. You have got to take initiative to get up and go. I walked, and I've walked to work before, which I'm on 14th, and I've walked clear to the Hy-Vee on 10th, in the snow, in the blowing snow. And I'm 60 years old. If I can do it, some young guys can. I'm sorry, I hear everybody coming up here complaining and complaining and complaining. You gotta do this, you have to do this, you have to help these, you have to help these. In order to get help, you have to want help. You have to take that first initiative and get up and do it. I'm sorry, I feel for you guys. I feel because, I mean, look, we're growing. This is a growing city. This is the #1 city in South Dakota. I mean, my God. Yeah, sure, there is help. There's the community outreach. There's the county. But they can only do so much. You have to take that first step to say, hey, look, I gotta get this done. You know what I mean? I mean, I hear so much complaining. Life is not free. In order, yeah, you want to build houses for the homeless? How are they going to pay for it? In order to pay for something, you have to have a job. My rent's $600. And you got utilities. So I feel for you guys, okay? Have a good day.
All right, thanks, James.
I'm just aggravated, sorry.
It's all right, man. Thanks. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. Kind of sort of what my man was talking about. All right, you know what? I'm going to start out by saying this. The last time I was here, I'm going to apologize, and I'm only going to apologize about one thing. I'm not going to apologize about what I said, but I am going to apologize for the misinterpret because I very much am concerned for anything like trafficking or anything of that sort, if that's exactly what that person was talking about, okay? Look, kind of what my man was talking about, look, if it wasn't for discrimination in the way that I've been treated when I've tried working, and I have worked before, I used to work at Villa Fresh at the Empire Mall. I got let go for no reason. I tried applying at the Salvation Army, where I used to be one of their best bell ringers, but somebody had made a lie about me. Now they decide I can't work for them. I went through the Department of Labor only to get slandered. However, I do get an income, and I do, like he said, our rent is $600. That's half of my income. But because I choose to have a roof over our head and not be in our car anymore or on the street somewhere, I pay for rent so we have a place to live. That's my part being in my relationship. I'm working towards trying to get any information I can so I can get my civil collected. But a lot of the problems that I've been dealing with in this state is people with their slanders. When I was talking about the police officers and the way people, how they approach certain people, I was talking about my situations, the way I was treated when I first came to Sioux Falls. But most of the officers know me now, so they know how to approach me, and they know, they come and they talk and find out what's really going on. They don't show up and just body slam me on the ground and throw me in jail overnight for no reason like they used to, because they understand me now. But what my man says, there's a lot of people that are on the streets because they want money for alcohol. They want money for drugs. They go back and forth to detox. They're passing out on the roads. Okay, don't have sympathy for those people. Get your butt up and try to do something, whether it's with an income, a job, a civil matter, whatever it is people are working on. I'm not here to judge nobody. But you know, my man, I do got good news. My man might be getting qualified for SSDI. He'll find out on the 13th. I'm praying he gets that because that'll be extra income to help us to get ahead in life to more things that we're trying to do. And I just want everybody to know I'm blessed to make it through another year, and I want everybody to have a blessed night.
Thanks, Heather. Good evening.
This one. Sign says, "Follow your bliss." My name is Melanie Bliss. I live at 2021 South First Avenue. I live on Route 5. Transportation is an economic driver of the city. With more serious attention and effort, Sioux Falls could and should have modern, more efficient transit that serves more of the city. The city is proposing to pilot on-demand transit to see if it could replace our fixed route system. Public transit proposals should answer basic concerns before approval. No professional transit planners have been consulted. The team charged with revamping public transit consists of city employees from various departments. Sioux Falls has hired consultants for many other projects. Sioux Falls Parks and Rec just reported the professional evaluation and recommendations to accommodate city growth for the next 20 years. All the chamber-approved charity fundraisers are required to have a professional fundraising consultant. Recently, a community group hired experts in skate park design. A software vendor is not a transit professional. Phone calls to other cities' transit departments does not constitute consultation with professionals about our own town. This plan that is being proposed still leaves large parts of Sioux Falls without bus transportation. For something as complicated and essential as public transit, expertise is surely needed. We're going to be passing out a letter to each of you, and it has at the bottom of it a reference to Missoula, Montana, and an online report, which is 63 pages long. And on the overhead, it has a table of contents. I recommend you reading at least the first 8 pages, and the ones that have the cute little stars are like cliff notes or a quick summary, and it's well worth your while, and I think you'll find yourself reading the whole thing. It is very complex, the situation. We have at present a request for proposal that requests a software application for smartphones with data plans. We don't have a request for proposal for a transit professional. And on the addendum in that RFP on your website, it says that it's a $200,000 to $300,000 pilot with a 3-month-long duration only on Saturdays. $300,000 would be 100,000 fares on the bus. My time is up. Enjoy the bus. Can the bus stay, or
No,
does
it
the bus
cannot.
have to?
No, it cannot stay.
It can't stay. There's my 3 minutes. And I'll take this, and I'll give.
All right, come forward, please, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Kathy Brachtelsbauer, also from Bus Route 5, and also with a concern about the proposed bus pilot program. I'm concerned that the city could move ahead without evidence that an on-demand system either improves efficiency or increases ridership. And we need to do both. Improved efficiency has been stated as one of the important goals of the pilot program, or a reason of making change, and as recently as last Monday's PTAB. Also, we need to improve ridership because buses are the most efficient way to move people in vehicles And we have an earth to save, and every decision that we make as people and as cities needs to have consciousness that we need to reduce our carbon footprint. So we have looked at information about different bus systems and a summary of various pilot programs made around the country showed that we might expect an on-demand system to have something like up to 3 rides per hour on average, whereas a fixed route system would have 10 to 40 rides per hour on average. So it's a big concern that we may not have the evidence that we should have of improved efficiency or ridership. Another thing we have done is to look at the different cities that have been suggested to us, such as Belleville, Ontario. It turns out that the on-demand system there is only their night bus, which is very nice to get people home from work or home from their evening activities, but it's not comparable to a whole system's bus system to be on demand. It just served a specialized purpose. In addition, a city that is trying it to do their whole system is Arlington, Texas. And so I contact them every so often. And as of last Monday, they have had one day with, and she was very very excited that they finally had a day with 1,000 rides. Here in Sioux Falls, with our limited bus system, and our city, much smaller, we average 2.5 times that, 2.5 times their top day. Arlington, Texas is a city more than double the size of Sioux Falls, plus a 40,000 student on campus. And they have far fewer rides per month than we have. So we're not saying there's no use for on-demand, but we're saying that the city needs to have some evidence that this is a good move that will bring efficiency and increased ridership for our city before we move ahead. Thank you.
Stephen Ciano. First of all, I want to say I understand you used to have a Scoop It program to dig out people's snow that need it, old people and disabled people. So maybe we can have that such things reinstated. I had also wanted to speak about the bus system being grossly inadequate. I know somebody who reported to me having been unable to use the bus effectively to get to work as a medical professional over 20 years ago, and it apparently has not been adequately improved since. And now the city has grown to, well, quite large proportion in comparison to that long ago. Now, I live at the furthest extent of the number 9 bus at Sycamore and 26th, and now the city goes out far past that. I also want to speak on the, I want to urge you people to stop limiting our time and public input, to reverse that, make an effort to do that, and also to open up for transparency and accountability. We need oversight in the mental health area, and after all, I was fraudulently depicted and evidence suppressed in order to deny me my rights as a disabled person by many professionals, including Falls Community Health and Human Relations. I felt didn't do enough, and I hope that this can be reversed as well. And that is in connection with the VA, and the groups that support the VA say throw more money at it. Well, no, that doesn't solve the problem. What we need is to hold people accountable, and well, that's enough for now. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Stephen. Good evening.
Greetings. I'm David Zalkaitis, and I'm here to talk tonight about city programs for urban renewal. Now, the goal of urban renewal programs is to make a better city, to make things prettier. revitalize the urban core, and if we have any urban blight, get rid of it and put in something better. One of the main goals or one of the main methods in urban renewal is a TIF, tax increment financing. I've chatted about this before, so here's just a quick review to glue it into the other methods that we have available. You can locate a blighted area and say, hey, we need to fix this up, so we'll give people a tax cut for 20 years to prompt investment in that area. It's a good idea if you have a problem. But in Sioux Falls, we tend to identify projects to support instead of areas to rejuvenate. And there's no limit on project size or the owner income. So this is great if you can get a TIF going for you, but maybe not so good for the tax that everybody else gets to pay. I recently learned about a reduced tax program to help besides a TIF, and it saves you property tax for 5 years as opposed to a TIF saying property tax for 20 years. It's good for particular areas in town, and it's good for structures over $300,000. So if you have a really small project, you're out of luck. And there's a reference if you want more information on it. If you have a house that needs work, there's a housing program for lower income houses, but it unfortunately excludes mobile homes for the poorest of the houses. I think you should include mobile homes and change the city ordinance. You can get interest-free loan while you're living in this place. Good deal. Should make for quite a lot of improvement for lower income people trying to fix up their houses. And I talked to Dustin Powers from the city and learned about these two programs, so thanks for the support from Dustin. Now, in all of these programs, there's some problems with inequality in that mobile homes aren't covered for the poorest of the people, and the TIFs are great for the richest people that we have in town, and they have kind of some of the best terms. Oh, and I always like to end with something a little off the normal thing, that is. So here's me at Great Bear getting off the lift chair in an unusual manner. This is the day that the lift chair was broken and they let us down with her open. So good evening and good night.
Thanks, David. Anyone else this evening for public input? All right, we'll move on. Next item, please.
Item 40 is transfer of 2020 package liquor license from Belay Abibi Mercado, 631 West 11th Street to Michelle Gouli Mercado, 631 West 11th Street, CUP not required. Item 41 is a special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine license for Willikers Incorporated to be operated at USD Community Center, 4801 North Career Avenue for a special event on March 12, 2020. Item 42 is a special one-day malt beverage license for Siouxland Heritage Museums to be operated at the Old Courthouse Museum, 200 West 6th Street for a St. Patrick's Day family event on March 17, 2020. Item 43 is a special one-day malt beverage license for Presentation Sisters to be operated at Falls Park, 305 East Falls Park Drive for a Cinco de Mayo Festa on May 9, 2020. Item 44 is a special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine licenses for Interstate House of Pancakes Incorporated Roll and Pin to be operated at Open Space, 6212 South Pinnacle Place for a wedding reception on March 14, 2020.
Hi, Jamie.
Good evening, Jamie Palmer with licensing. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on items 40 through 44.
All right, thank you, Jamie. For any questions for Jamie, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on any of these items tonight?
I told Mercado's I was going to speak on item.
Can you state your name?
Sierra Broussard on item 40 here. We cleaned up his place there. He is a suitable person in a suitable location. The calls for service was high. When I got to the place to help him and Los Hispanos, the police wasn't doing their job and dropping the ball. When I went there to clean up the police department tried to go up against Mercado and put a no trespassing on the property because they didn't want to hear me clean up the block. There was quite a few businesses that were having issues with Lucky Ladies clientele in Munchies. Mercado, Belay Abdi has cooperated with law enforcement, has called law enforcement, and then I got involved, and as of right now, his place has been cleaned up a whole lot tremendously. The call volume has gone down tremendously. This was a situation with some police officers that just was sick and tired of going to calls on high call volume areas here on that. I don't know the other individual that is applying for the liquor license. Mercado Belly Adabi was a good, very suitable person for this location. He kept his stuff out of there. He had no alcohol stings that I know of. He prosecuted people. He cooperated with law enforcement and the federal investigators. And he has a federal investigation on a woman that tried to pass a kid through his place of business. Abdi Mercado, Belay Abdi had put a $800, $900 like bulletproof glass because he kept breaking his glass and it kept costing him. So when you break it, you can't, it just shatters. It won't go through the whole of none of that. He did press charges and complied with the police department on this woman from the federal courthouse that she had federal charges on, and I think she went to prison, federal time for that. So I hate to see Mr. Belay Abdabi selling his business. I do have a little bit of concerns. I don't know the new licensure. I don't know if he's a suitable person for this or not. I spoke with him briefly, and I hope that he knows what he's doing in a high crime area, especially serving alcohol, when to serve alcohol, when not to serve alcohol, when to call the police, when to use the police, when to step forward and try to prevent stuff from happening on his property here. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that he said that Belay Abdabi has been helping him through the transition of the business here of that nature. I'm going to say, since working almost 2 years with Mercados and all that area here, we have some really tough liquor licenses coming up this fall on those corners here. And Mr. Belay Abdi is not one that should be on the hot seat as far as liquor license renewals here. He's worked very hard with me and went up against the police department many times when they wanted to put me off the block. And we prosecuted a lot of people for trespassing, and he has video cameras, and he was very cooperative with law enforcement when they kept breaking into his place of business and stealing his alcohol here. So that's what I wanted to say about Mercados over here. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Anyone else here to speak on any of these items 40 through 44? All right, Counselor, do you have questions for Jamie on any of these items?
Move to approve.
Second, Erickson.
All right, motion approved by Kylie, seconded by Eric. Any discussion, Council? Councilor
Yes,
Starr.
absolutely. Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'd like to, I have a couple of questions for the transfer item for the Mercado, item number 40. So if the applicant's here, I'd like to ask them a couple of questions.
Is the applicant for that one here? Go ahead and come forward, sir. Come on up. You just state your name, sir.
Hi, my name is Mikhail Goulet.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you. Welcome, sir. Give me a little bit of idea of your security plan. This is a neighborhood that is a high crime area in our city. There's drug and alcohol problems already in that area. I know that I've committed to cleaning up the area. I know that there's a sober living facility right outside your back door. There's drug paraphernalia, which means that if the paraphernalia is there, that there's the drug use is happening. Tell me about your background in security and how you would follow the laws and the security plan that you have in place to run a liquor store in our city.
Yeah, now the security plan that I have is he's been doing it for at least like 15 years. Mm-hmm. And I have known him almost a year now. And always have been talking to him, and also I have been asking him a lot of things about how his security plan here, how he works, and also how he take care of his business at the same time with the safety of the public and also alcohol regulations. So, and also like I have experience in food industry for about like restaurant and bar for about 6 years, and I'm certified.
Okay.
So I'm aware that where I'm going to be working, what kind of place I'm going to be working, and also I have more knowledge about that. In that place, when I work, I can be more aware of what's going to be happening in that place.
Are you aware in the last couple of months, we've taken a license from a business because they couldn't handle the security issues that were on their problem? Things like drinking on the premises, fighting, littering, those kind of things. So can you specifically tell me how you would handle that?
Yeah, I always, I will be handling it through the police department and also the people who are going to help me with that.
Okay, who's going to help you with it? I guess that's where
Who's
I'm trying to go. I'm not trying to be overly pushy, but I'm very concerned about this area of town because we got excited as a council because the last liquor license that we took away from someone, they had 200 calls for service in their area from our police, fire, ambulance, down the list. Your area of town where you're planning on running a business had over 1,500 calls for service. And it continues to be a problem in that area of town. And I need something pretty concrete to go ahead and move forward with giving you this license.
Yeah, anyway, Mr. Belay, the owner of the previous owner of the license, he's always, as a friend, he always going to be helping me.
Huh?
And also, he's always like telling me what I'm supposed to do. And also like a lot of things that I don't know how to explain it like specifically, but I have been working with him now almost like I came here and he was teaching me, he was telling me, he was training me while he was working under his license. So I think I'm well trained with him.
Thank you.
Counselor Staley?
I've just got a.
Can you come forward and speak into the mic, sir?
My name is Balai. I've been in Mercato as a manager and owner for 16 years. Concerning my health situation and tired, I transferred the business to the young ones. Anyway, based on my experience, I know how it is hard to handle a liquor license. I gave him enough training how to handle, to do not sell alcohol for intoxicated people, to be vigilant in the area, to do not let people to hang out outside. All that training I gave him enough. So I'm confident he's gonna keep the name and the business clean and a nice way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Counselor Staley.
So what Counselor Starr referenced this situation that we had where we denied the liquor license. Did you follow that at all?
I know that, okay, if in 16 years, really I can tell you the first 3 years, 4 years was really tough. Then, even you see the last 4 or 5 years, there is no any problem at all in that particular.
In yours? No, and I'm referencing what we did, the history just recently, that we denied this license and just.
Yeah, I know that.
Yes, and part of the problem was the consumption on the property, but also it was the tall, high-potency drinks that were being sold exclusively, and that this whole, that the drinking of those was spilling over and having an effect on the businesses and the residential areas. So what percentage of your sales is in the high potency, those like.
Here is the main thing is really to do not let kind of group of customers to do not let them to stay around. That is number one. Number two, we prefer to sell the package liquor instead of singles.
But you have singles
Prefer to do
available.
that, yeah.
You have
But
singles.
we are very familiar. I know that even the lady who lost the license, I told her to distance those customers. Those are not good customers, even for the business, because they will distance good people away from us. So we don't, they are not our number one customers, you know what I mean? So there is systematically, you have to distance them by increasing price. A lot of tactics, I told him to use those tactics to distance, I can't say, I mean, very intoxicated customers. We don't need them.
Right.
So
And Counselor
also-
Starr and I actually had a chance to, along with Sierra, who spoke earlier, we came to your store, and if I remember correctly, you sell other things besides alcohol, too.
Oh, we have
Yes,
grocery.
all
we have-
sorts of, yes.
We have different activities also. We have different activities.
Yes, so I think that, to me, the moral of the story of what happened earlier this year with that
Nothing
other, that
happened in
is
our
that,
area.
yeah, we just want people to be responsible and make sure that
No,
we
are
aren't causing
responsible.
hardship.
I told you, we are really
Yes.
100% responsible. We don't want to be the cause of the problem. Never. That will never happen. Yeah, we are serious in that.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Erickson.
Thank you. One of the, and I don't have any questions for you. Thank you for answering the questions. One of the things that I want to just make sure that everyone is aware of is the Walia one that we did deny, that was voted as denial, is because of the heavy drinking on premise. It was not allowed to have on drinking premise and the loitering and the garbage. That's why that happened. What the message I don't want to have come out of here is that you have fear for contacting the police. Anytime somebody is being unruly in your store, outside of your store, across the street from your store, down the street from you, I want you to call the police. That's safe neighborhoods. That's how we clean up. But I don't want you to hear the message coming from this council that you have 1,500 calls, it means that you've got a bad store. No, it means that you're being responsive to that. I know that there's been issues in the neighborhood before, but I don't want anyone to fear that we're going to continue to bring you up here in front of us and make you feel bad for calling the police. Call the police when there's an issue. Period, end of story. And I appreciate you answering the questions to that, but I just want to make sure that we're not sending mixed messages. If there's loitering, call the police. If you're having issues with intoxicated people, call the police. I would rather have you have higher call volume and a safer area.
6 years, really it is so nice, so quiet. There is no any problem at all. And nobody hang out on the corner or the other area. Right. Every day we are vigilant, you know what I mean? We distance them.
And I appreciate that.
They are not there.
And I know you do offer a definite need in the neighborhood of people that do come and buy groceries in your neighborhood. It is a heavily foot traffic area in which your market is located. And coming downtown from where I come to down to these meetings, I drive by there all the time. And there's people always outside. That's just the neighborhood of that area. And so keep your eyes out. Be vigilant, do your diligence with that. Don't serve to underage, don't serve to intoxicated fellows and women, and I appreciate you answering the calls. I just don't want us to send a message to you that
Really,
you
I told
fear
him,
us.
so the first thing what I told him about this serious issue about handling alcohol. Thanks God, in my 16 years, I have never happened, there was not even one violation, zero. No underage, no intoxicated. I just been there, I watch everybody, I control every activity. He has to do that way. I told him, I teach him, I gave him exercise, everything. And still I am around, I will help him. Thank you very much for your time.
Yep, thank you, gentlemen. All right, you can have a seat, sir. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so we have a motion by Councilor Kiley, seconded by Erickson to approve this. Any other discussion? Councilor Starr?
Thank you. I'm not as perplexed, but I need some kind of way to evaluate what's going on in the neighborhood. You can walk through that property at any time and find the drug paraphernalia that's going on. You can find people living in storage units. You can find people that are passed out, intoxicated, that need help. That's what's going on. And if we're not going to make the effort to clean these areas of town up, what I keep being told repeatedly, that's always happened in that neighborhood. And all you're going to do is chase it to some other part of town. Well, I'm willing to chase it around town. We're chasing it around right now at Eastside Lutheran Church because we closed a liquor store and moved it to a different liquor store to buy. I spent 45 minutes Friday afternoon picking up beer cans and trash out of their lawn and the parking lot. I called in a person who was unconscious because they drank too much malt alcohol, the high content alcohol things. I'm not an anti-alcohol person, but at the same time, we've got to do something different in our community. We passed this transfer tonight and we're shirking our responsibility. We are allowing someone who I feel does not have the experience to run a liquor store in this area of town. That's our bottom line to where we're at. What we can decide to do is it's either a suitable location, we can deny the license because it's not a suitable location, or a suitable person. Mr. Gooley seems like an awesome individual and he wants to run a business in our city. I get that. I totally understand that. But we don't turn people loose with something that requires a high degree of capability and experience that's needed. This isn't an area of town where you practice and learn how to run a business on how to run a packaged liquor store. And I appreciate that the former owner is going to do as much training as possible. I asked for a copy of the security plan. He can't tell us what's in the security plan other than he's going to go with what the former owner had, and he'll be there occasionally to help. That's part of retiring is moving on and turning it on to the younger generation, like he stated. So again, tonight, I'm voting against the transfer of the license for a suitable person. He doesn't have the experience to be operating in this neighborhood, and we don't need them to learn on the job and practice in this area of town if we're committed to making a difference in what we're doing.
Councilor Staley.
Jamie, would you come up here for a minute, please? Just a question of policy. If this would get voted down, then what happens to the license? Does it just stay with the original owner?
It does. It would just remain with Belay, a baby.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Councilor Neitzer.
So real quick, I think because of this vote, I should state where I'm sitting on this. Does the area have problems? Yes. The issue, and so when it was asked, how do we measure this? For me, I talked to PD. They're the ones on the ground, and I asked them, where are the problems coming from? And at the last location, what I heard loud and clear was the problems were originating in the way the place was being run. In this particular case over here, when I talked to them, that is not the story that I hear. Their store happens to be in the area, but I don't know that they're the source of these issues, and I think that's the distinction here. And I think the previous owner has a track record in the last several years that gives me confidence that he's hopefully coached and teached the person who's going to take over. And again, I also want to reiterate what Councilor Erickson said, because I think the last message ever that I'd want to send is, have you afraid to call the police because you're afraid of having too many police calls? Because I never just look at the police calls. I ask, what are the calls for and what are they coming from? So if there are issues and they're outside of your business, we want you to call, and the police will let us know. These calls are not coming from inside of the business. It's them calling and being responsible. And so I want you to do that. And so never be afraid to do that. The last thing we want you to do is not call and let the problems fester. Being a good business owner is making those calls. So please, please do that. But in this case, I think we give this guy a shot, and it's for those reasons. And because I had very clear data from those who work it every day from PD that there was an issue with the other location, and I don't have that here.
All right, thank you.
Discussed 3 weeks ago on February 11th. Includes targeted investments from our sales and capital use funds. So these are for capital projects related to the available balance that we're carrying forward into 2020 from 2019. At our last informational on February 11th, we went into great detail talking about kind of the sales tax results for 2019. We talked about kind of where the available balance came from, and we talked in great detail about each of the projects that were being proposed. So I'm not looking to restate that tonight, and I'm sure that's to great relief on your part as well. But I do want to give you a little bit of a refresher on some of the things in the available cash that are the available balance that is moving forward. And primarily, so about 40% of that available balance was generated by increases in sales taxes over and above our expectations. So while we had a significant available balance that we are carrying forward, about 40% of that was related to revenues in excess of what our expectations were. The rest of it relates to one-time expenditures and as well as market changes or adjustments. So those one-time events, I should say, primarily related to things like a refinancing of the bonds in 2018 that opened up the opportunity for $1.6 million to be carried forward into 2020. We also had $400,000 that we never obligated from 2018 that carried forward from 2019 into 2020. We also had some economic factors at play, interest income that we carried forward from the cash deposits that we have in our trust funds, as well as some market adjustments that we had in our bonds that we hold as investments. So all of that came into play in terms of what we're carrying forward in 2020. In terms of projects and concepts that we're bringing forward in the proposal that was first brought forward to you on February 11th and is being brought forward for second reading tonight, I guess I would frame that in the concept of value in how we came about providing these proposals for you. First and foremost, listening to the public and what seems to be resonating as themes for what's important to the community, listening to you and the things that you guys have discussed both at the council but also in various meetings and conversations with us, as well as conversations that we have had across departments in bringing forward a set of proposals that establishes priorities across the city, not just for individual departments, but weighing these priorities against one another in terms of their value, in terms of timeliness, in terms of their efficiency, how they align with other projects that are being done at the same time, as well as their impact that they will have for the community. One of the things that we talked about in our last presentation was the concept of taking $1.7 million of that available balance and rolling it into our reserve fund. So when we talk about reserves, we typically think about our general fund or operating account balance, that $50 million that we hold in reserve. Typically, we've not held a significant reserve within the capital fund. It has been about $700,000, and typically we have obligated the rest of that fund for capital projects. One of the things that we're looking at and talked about was those headwinds that we consider in terms of the economic circumstances that may be coming forward from us, but also about creating balance and providing stability and being able to take advantage of potential economic challenges that may come forward. We continue to make sure that we move forward with the investments and take advantage of those opportunities. I think if you look at the last week, we've had a little bit of economic turmoil. We've seen a somewhat unprecedented reduction in the federal funds rate that the Fed has just moved forward with, things that we wouldn't have in any way anticipated 3 months ago. So this idea of putting aside some additional funds into reserves really kind of builds on that with the idea that we'd have the ability and the capacity to address those economic circumstances as they come forward with us. So as we look at these, the available balance, and you see these in our monthly reports, so we have an end-of-year balance of $61.5 million related to the sales and use tax fund. Now, $28 million of that is restricted. I think Councilor Starr, in our last presentation, you had asked a little bit about what that all encompasses. About $21 million of that is related to the trust funds that we have holding with U.S. Bank. They are required as part of our bond loan commitments, and so we continue to maintain that. So most of that restriction is related to that. The reserve fund, which was previously $700,000, we're proposing to bring to $2.4 million. Then we have what we've already committed to projects that are already in the docket or are already under construction and part of our capital program. That's the $24 million. So that leaves us with approximately $6.5 million of available cash carried forward into 2020. The request in front of you is for $6.125 million. So with approval of tonight's recommendation or tonight's request for appropriation, there would still be a available balance of about $350,000. That was last year. We also had some unobligated funds, and that actually worked to somewhat of an advantage because we had some weather-related events. We did have to obligate some additional funds as the year went on in relation to some of those emergencies that occurred and some capital expenditures that we incurred as a result of that. So having some funds available for that potential risk going forward is something that was seen as being beneficial as well. Talking a little bit about the projects that we're bringing forward. So of the $6.125 million, $1.7 million is invested into highways and streets. It continues our commitment that was made in the 5-year capital program of really making a strong emphasis in this area. $1.125 million for timely investments for some priority needs in parks and recreation. And of course, $3.3 million for the fire station number 12 that would be constructed in the southeast portion of Sioux Falls that we had talked about. That we would now pay for them in cash instead of bonding for with a bond that's coming forward later in the year. For the highway and streets, just as kind of a refresher of what's been included as part of this proposal, $1.4 million is related to doing a mill and overlay for 41st Street between Western Avenue and Minnesota Avenue. This is one of the most heavily trafficked streets in Sioux Falls. It has about 24,000 vehicles a day. Investing in the 41st Street improves the daily commutes for thousands of residents each day. The last overlay project was done in 2011. The pavement is deteriorating quickly, and once they go, as Mr. Cotto would say, it deteriorates fast. The intersections along that corridor have already been upgraded for ADA. In terms of timeliness of why now this is an important project to move this forward, it's an ideal time to minimize the impact of the construction on drivers and businesses because it coordinates with 2 bookend projects that are already occurring on this corridor, that being the 41st Street and Western Avenue reconstruction that's going forward this year, as well as on the east side, the 41st Street, Minnesota Avenue right turn lane projects. So these projects, again, are bookmarks on this entire project for this, and makes it a timely project to move this particular one forward. It is already past the initiation phase. It's in right now in final design and something that could be moved forward with in 2020. The other portions of this, the highway and streets request for an allocation is $100,000 for Techcrete. This would be primarily for downtown and builds off the existing downtown Techcrete project. It will allow for additional patching of deteriorated concrete joints. The downtown is more vibrant now more than ever between pedestrian, bike, and vehicle traffic, and investing in the maintenance of roads is very important there as well. There's a shorter construction time frame than there is with joint replacement when you're talking about Techcrete, and it is more durable than pothole patching, lasting 4 to 9 years. The importance of doing this now is that the work has already been bid. Time is of the essence in order to modify those existing contracts to add the additional quantity that would be allowed by this proposal. Similarly for the slurry seal that is being proposed, it's a cost-effective preservation for local asphalt streets. It would allow for 80 additional neighborhood streets to be done with a 1/2-inch asphalt mixture added to the existing asphalt. It's a quick process. Streets are reopened to traffic within a few hours. And again, the importance of moving this forward now is that the work has already been bid and time is of the essence in terms of modifying those existing contracts to add the additional quantities that this additional funding would allow. As far as the park and recreation, $800,000 of the request is related to the chairlift, which was discussed quite a bit at the last presentation. But again, that current system was built in 1981. It is nearing the end of its useful life. The challenge is, of course, getting replacement parts since the manufacturer has long since been out of business. And in terms of bringing it up to date for safety and technology features and making it more efficient for that system. I think Councilor Sale, you had asked a little bit in the last presentation about the need for moving it forward this year because the discussion is if we move it forward, we still wouldn't have it open for business in terms of the new chairlift until the winter 2021 season. The importance of doing it now is this is about a $1.9 million project. We had previously allocated about $877,000 to this project. This would add another $800,000 to it, so doing some quick math, we can tell that that doesn't add up to $1.9 million. But working with our partners, we as the owners of the Great Bear area, recreation area, and taking a leading effort in terms of the capital improvements for that area, partnering with our management entity nonprofit who is committed to filling that gap. If we are able to commit the funding now, the important piece of it is we would need to order this chairlift system by October of this year in order for it to be manufactured, for the site preparation to be done, and have it installed in time for the winter 2021 season. With the request from Great Bear Management Company to be able to fill in the gap for the $250,000 to $300,000, our commitment now for the additional $800,000 positions them with the opportunity to make good faith on their commitment to generating those funds prior to October of this year, so that we can go ahead and get that piece of ordered and started with manufacturing. The second piece of the Parks and Recreation request is more, again, a new priority that has come about, but it is related to Terrace Park. The Lion's Den has had significant issues. It is in need of facade tuck pointing. Its missing stone need to be replaced, and it is necessary for additional stabilization to avoid further deterioration and stabilize the doors and windows. In the Japanese gardens and the pergola, the structural improvements to columns and beams, the stone seats and walls require tuck pointing and reuse as much. They will be trying to reuse as much of the stone as possible. They tried to address this in the past, but it is going to require a more significant reconstruction at this time. The importance of doing this now is that the work needs to be completed in order to preserve these existing assets. The Lion's Den is currently fenced off to prevent access to it as much as possible, but the deterioration continues. The pergolas represent a historic asset to the community as part of the Japanese gardens and is a common area used by community citizens for pictures as well as just general enjoyment. The need for acting is now in order to preserve these items for future benefit. Non-action may result in the need to remove these items and would jeopardize their future preservation. The last piece of the request is the fire station number 12, which is slated to be constructed at the intersection of Faith Avenue and 41st Street in southeast Sioux Falls. This is a project that had been part of the capital plan for quite some time. It was anticipated that we would move forward with it as part of our bonding efforts, but a big portion of that bonding is related to the public safety training facility as well as the River Greenway, and we are still waiting for those project costs to come through. Timing-wise, it is important for us to have been bidding this project now to take advantage of the time frame in which most of these contractors are receiving these bids, proposals, and being able to generate the best price for the city in this regard. Secondly, and importantly, there's an important factor of timing of having this constructed in 2020 so that it can open in the spring of 2021. We would have 15 new firefighters coming online that would be available to service this facility. In the past meetings on February 11th, we talked a lot about the ISO rating and the importance of preserving that for the city of Sioux Falls. But even more importantly to that, I think, is about response times, because that's what really has a lot of meaningful impact in the daily lives of people. I recently had an event where I had to wait for paramedics to show up at a public area, and I can tell you that every minute counts. Every minute seems like it takes for an eternity when those occur. And so I have a new profound appreciation for that time frame. I was just talking to Jay Titus here from Fire Rescue before this, and that area of southeastern Sioux Falls right now, their response times are about 1.5 minutes behind the average for the entirety of the city. So that again stresses the importance of this particular project and moving it forward. So with that, we do have Director Cotter here who is available to answer any questions you have related to the request for highways and streets. We have Director Carney here to answer any specific questions you might have in regard to the Parks and Recreation components of this request. And we do have Jay Titus here representing Fire Rescue. So be happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, John, thank you. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? All right, Council, do you have questions for Sean or any other city staff or directors on anything here? Councilor Staley.
Sean? First of all, thank you for the comprehensive overview of this proposal. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Also, just so the public understands that Sean was at our informational meeting today, and in the last two to 3 weeks, we've had a budget working session where the council put forth some of our priorities for the budget. And I'm appreciative that the mayor has instructed his finance director to listen to us, because we are the connectors to the public. We hear what you say, we bring forth ideas, and we work on this as a collaborative group of the council and the administration together. So I appreciate that. And one of the things I just wanted to say that we are talking, one of the things I'm hoping that you will be able to work into our budget is an urban forestry department that would care for the trees that we have on our boulevard. So that's just a little aside to that, because you were talking about priorities. So just to let the public understand that we've got a surplus, it's good news. Also that the public understands that we've been hearing really positive information about our sales tax growth, right? We've been bringing in a healthy amount of money on the first and second penny as far as our trade within our community, right?
Correct. 2019 exceeded what we had originally anticipated.
It's exceeding it.
2019.
So I'm going to say this now, since we're talking about surplus, that in the past, during our budget time, I, and sometimes accompanied by my colleague here, Pat Starr, have voted against a property tax increase. Every year, we build a property tax increase into the budget. And I know that I'm hearing from constituents who are saying, wow, you know, our taxes are going through the roof here. And so I'm saying this to you now, because we're talking about surplus, that as you're creating the budget, and they're just starting to mix the batter together now. The cake has not been put in the oven yet. So as you mix it together, I'm saying it would certainly be nice this year if you came back to the council. I may or may not be sitting here, I don't know, this fall in September, but if you were to come back and say, you know, we've decided not to take that property tax increase this year. We don't need it, okay? I just want to throw that out. Food for thought. And the last thing I want to talk about is the Great Bear ski lift. Now, you said 1.9 million, almost 2 million to replace it. And help the public to understand what the reason we're adding this back in. My understanding is that you went to the management, or to the founding fathers, so to speak, of Great Bear and said, we would like you to fundraise $800,000.
I'll call Don up here to speak to that. Don,
Okay.
would you mind speaking to the chairlift?
What I'm going to ask is, when we talk about the pavilion and these other needs that these other entities have, why was it that we were taking that $2 million and dividing it up and asking them to fundraise, which apparently they couldn't do? So we're putting it back into the budget, the $800,000. Why did we even ask them to do that? Why didn't we just pay for it?
Well, I think that's just a general goal of ours, to try to get as much private investment as possible into the park system. And so we challenged them with to raise an extra $1 million to go out and raise the $1 million to be able to fund the balance of the chairlift. They made some attempts to try to do that, and unfortunately they weren't able to do that in the time frame that we identified. And so with the sales tax surplus came up, we identified if we raised the we provided $800,000, would they commit to raising the other $200,000 to fully fund that project? And so, as you know, when we're at the informational and first reading, Steve Sanford and the Great Bear Board have agreed to come up with those dollars.
So like at the zoo, do we ask them to do the same thing with the zoo projects?
A lot of times they do, yes.
Fundraising.
Sometimes they fully fund projects, sometimes they partially fund them, and the city contributes as well in certain situations.
How about the pavilion?
I can't speak to the pavilion.
But we could, like what we're going to be talking about, replacing that ornamental stuff on the top of the pavilion. We could maybe ask the pavilion board to help pay for that as well.
Yeah, I'm not affiliated with the pavilion. so.
Okay, but this is, it's not unheard of to go to the facilities and ask them to help pay for things.
Any other questions on the surplus from any other counselors? Counselor Neitzer.
I do have a couple related to the surplus. First of all, the holdback, the reserve of 1.7 million. Given uncertainty right now, I have no problem with that. I'm just curious, is there a timeline that you would have that you would hold it for? Is there a cap? I mean, you know, it may continue to grow. Just so we're intentional about it and we don't find ourselves 3 years from now sitting on $6 million of idle taxpayer dollars.
I think it's something that we give consideration to on an annual basis, kind of taking a look at the economic outlook as well as kind of what the funding priorities are needed at that point, without being very specific about that we're trying to target to this level, is because the capital side is much different than say our risks in terms of the operational side.
Okay, and as we discussed, just to continue to talk about what a policy could be, Great Bear does have a management agreement like any other entity.
Correct.
And I haven't pulled it up, and I wish I would have, but I'm assuming that it's like most where there'd be a stipulation that everything over 2,500 or something like that is capital and it's our responsibility, and anything under, they basically have to do that. They have to take care of it. Is that?
I believe so. I don't know if, I'm not familiar with that agreement, but is that correct? Okay.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, if anything they can fundraise is great, but ultimately we own the park. It's our capital, and it's not out of the ordinary, obviously. And in fact, we would be contractually obligated to take care of it. One other thing I wanted to call out, on the slide with the roads, how much was it for? Well, let me take a look at the number again. Okay, this is just something that's very interesting that I think is really a good thing to kind of call out just so citizens are aware. If you look at the slurry seal, I was just doing some really quick and dirty numbers. You said 80 blocks?
80 blocks, yep.
At 200,000, that's 2,500 a block that it's costing to do the slurry seal. $2,500, and then you look at this asphalt mill and fill, 1.4 million. I was just looking at the map and somewhere in the territory of 14, 15 blocks, give or take. I mean, quick and dirty, $100,000. The difference between $2,500 and $100,000. If you stay ahead of them and we do those little maintenance things, it gets us 5 or 10 years. That's why it's really important to keep working on those neighborhood roads. And if you have any more capacity, do as many of those as you can in the neighborhoods. So let's just throw as much money at it as we can. Thanks.
All right, thanks. Any other questions for Sean while we got him up here on this? Does anyone want to make a motion on this item?
Move to approve. Second, Kylie.
All right, move to approve by Sale, seconded by Counselor Kylie. Any other discussion on this, Counselor Sale?
Yeah, I'm just going to make a quick observation on the reserve money is something that I indicated a long time ago that I think we should start doing with the uncertainty we have in the markets and what's going on with the economy. I think that's the right move to do, and to what Councilor Neitzer said about reserve. Let's hope we have that problem someday, that we might have too much in there. The highways and streets, as I talked to Director Cotter and made some inquiries about this remember is an additional to what we allocated for the 2020 budget, was a historically high number. And I trust that Director Cotter will address the streets that need to be done, because they've just done a survey on that. The Parks and Recreation, I inquired a couple of young people that I know about the condition of the chairlift, and they indicated to me that it's scary. So, and certainly we've seen in recent history on sometimes it malfunctions. So I'm all for moving that forward, even though the cost is frightening. And then when it comes to the fire rescue, to keep our ISO rating as good as it is, when we went from a 2 to a 1, the number that we heard that we are saving the businesses and residents of this community was over $3 million in insurance premiums. So for us to move this forward based on the additional money that we had at the end of the year, because we overshot our projections, I think is the right thing to do. So I wholeheartedly endorse this and intend to vote for it.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other discussion? Counselor Starr?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess the one thing that stands out to me is that we have 61.5 million in reserves, and we're talking about adding another 1.7 to those reserves. And we're talking about the fiscal condition of our city, and there's turbulent times ahead, but we continue to overtax our citizens. Wouldn't it be better in their savings accounts to be able to prepare for the future rather than continuing to raise their property taxes? At the end of 2018, we had almost $10 million more than the city could spend or needed. We found ways to invest it and add it to the reserves. In 2019, when the final numbers come in, we're going to be close to 13 million. But we continue to raise property taxes because we're afraid that maybe times will get tough and we need more as a government to have in reserves and to have in our savings account to prepare us. While we're watching the elderly of our community being taxed out of their homes, we watch this afternoon, we have budget priorities, and where do those budget priorities go? Housing. Well, the reason that housing is so a tough thing for people to gain in our city and around our country is because the property taxes that we continue to place on those. We're going to see that in the next 2 weeks with the number of citizens who come before us at the Board of Equalization and say that their valuations are off, which continues to mean that their property taxes are going to continue to go higher. I don't know how, at some point, we have to make the argument for the taxpayer before we make the argument that the city needs more in savings to take us forward. And at some point, we have to say, all right, if we were in favor of affordable housing and trying to make housing more accessible to people, then we got to take a look at what we're doing in property taxes. And the list tonight are all good projects that need to move forward, and I'm going to support them. But at the same time, this is money that maybe should have stayed in the pockets of our taxpayers and our residents of the city of Sioux Falls. At some point, we have to say there's enough spending and there's enough taxing that we're doing. And we, at least all I'm asking for in the future, and I voted against the property tax increase in this budget, because at some point we have to draw a line. We are in our community investing more in jails. We're investing more in our schools. We're doing those type of things. And I think as a city, we have the ability to step back. We're in the want category rather than the need category with a lot of these projects. Not all of them, but you know, when we're talking about a chairlift and we're talking about some updating some street things, it sure would make a lot more sense to allow someone to stay in their home longer because they could afford the property taxes.
Councilor Neitzer.
Just one real quick note, just for clarification. Property tax does not go into the second penny. We're having a discussion about capital dollars that only comes from sales tax. Completely separate issue.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Starr.
Totally understand that. But money's fungible as we move it from account to account. The numbers that I talked about in 18 and 19 are a combination of capital and operating dollars. So if you want to make the argument that that I don't know what I'm talking about, I get that. I understand it. I'm used to it. But on the other side of it, we still have plenty of money and we're overtaxing our citizens.
Any other discussion on this item, council? All right, let's take a vote on this one, please.
Councilmember Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. We'll move on to item 60, which was moved in part of our agenda early on.
Item 60 is a resolution amending the 2020-2024 capital program.
So this amends the actual capital program itself for the additional appropriations that were approved in the prior item.
All right, thanks, Sean. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item? All right, councilors, any questions on this?
Move to approve Erickson.
Second, Brecky.
All right, motion approved by Erickson, seconded by Councilor Brecky on that. Any discussion? We'll vote on that one, please.
Councilmember Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Selberg? Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 46.
Item 46 is a second reading and ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located south of East 12th Street and east of South 6 Mile Road, just west of the Big Sioux River, from the RR Single Family Residential Rural District to the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District, number 11597-2020, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. The Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0.
Jason, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Jason Bieber representing Planning and Development Services. This is an application by Aaron Norman. The owner is Dudley Deffenbaugh. It's located just east of the Willow Run Golf Course. It's about 4.9 acres in size. The purpose of rezoning is they're looking at including this 4.9 acres into the remaining Arbor's Ed subdivision to the east, and then they will construct some additional single-family homes.
All right, thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this topic tonight? Councilors, you got questions for Jason on this rezone? All right, motion approved by Erickson, seconded by Kylie. Any discussion, council? All right, we'll take a vote, please.
Councilmember Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Milberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Star?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 47.
Item 47 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located west of I-229, south of East 34th Street North, and east of North St. Paul Avenue from the RD1 Twin Home Duplex Residential Suburban and RS Single Family Residential Suburban Districts to the RT2 Townhome Residential Traditional District Number 11-599-2020, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls.
The applicant and owner is Habitat for Humanity, It's located south of East 34th Street, north and west of Interstate 229. It's about 4.43 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is Habitat for Humanity is looking to construct 14 twin homes on the property and a new street, so it would be roughly 28 units. The Planning Commission did add some conditions that they would only allow twin homes on this, which Habitat is fine with. And also they had been working for the neighbors with the neighbors on the west and the east side to construct a 6-foot fence in the buffer yard instead of the required 4-foot. So that was also a condition placed on by the Planning Commission, and Habitat didn't seem to have an issue with that request either. So.
All right, thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item? Council, do you have questions for Jason on this? Councilor Starr.
Jason, help me a little bit with the long-range plan. This area of our city has a lot of acre and a half, 2-acre type of lots. Are we going to be encouraging more developers to take some of these larger lots that have single homes on them and do this type of project?
I'm not necessarily sure about this type of project. This is one of the larger lots out there. I know as some of the families up there move on and start selling some parcels, that's definitely a possibility. This is kind of a interesting area if you've been up there, kind of some hodgepodge of some higher density stuff with also some leftover industrial businesses. So it's kind of a unique area of Sioux Falls. So I think it's something that our long-range planning staff is going to take a look at in the future, kind of this whole northern area, and maybe find some other opportunities to find some additional lots and things like that. So,
if I could, Mr. Mayor, I think there are several complaints and I think we've discussed them that in this area where that leftover industrial type of things, really come to conflict with individual neighbors. And so sooner rather than longer to say this is the kind of thing that we want to encourage, or it's the type of changes that we want to see, because I think we'll see larger duplex projects, becoming much more dense versus right now where there's a lot of land that surrounds a lot of these single family houses. So I'd encourage the planning department to have a good answer as where we're headed, and if we want to encourage this, or if it's something that we want to say we need to keep the single family housing on the larger lots.
Other questions for Jason? A motion on this item?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Brecky.
Motion by Councilor Erickson, seconded by Councilor Sale on that. Any discussion, council? I'll take a vote, please.
Councilmember Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson? Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Milberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Star?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
That passes 8-0. We'll move to item 48.
Item 48 is the second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at 808 South Grange Avenue from the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District to the RD1 Twin Home Duplex Residential Suburban District, number 11585, 2019, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0.
The applicant and owner here is Cal Pell. It's located at 808 South Grange Avenue, just east of USF. It's roughly 0.16 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is the applicant is looking at converting the existing house into a duplex. When we look at these houses and they're looking to convert to a duplex, we really want to make sure that they have enough parking. As you can see by the picture in the top right, they've got 4 to 5 parking spaces, so they'll meet the intent of the ordinance with the required off-street parking.
All right, thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public who would like to speak to this item? Council, do you have any questions for Jason on this?
Move to approve.
Second, Nitzert.
All right, motion approved by Kylie, seconded by Nitzert. Any discussion on the council? We'll vote on this, please.
Councilmember Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson? Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Elberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. On to 49.
Item 49 is the second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located south of East Arrowhead Parkway, west of South Veterans Parkway, and north of East 18th Street from the RA3 Apartment Residential High Density District to the CN Conservation and RD1 Twin Home Duplex Residential Suburban Districts, number 11622, 2020, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0.
The applicant and owner here is Troy Dolly with the Dolly family. It's located just south of the Walmart off of East Arrowhead Parkway. It's roughly 1.4 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is the applicant is looking at slightly shifting Foss Avenue farther to the east. And so they're looking at rezoning some of the RA3 to RD1, which matches the existing property to the west. And then they're also looking at constructing a detention pond on this property.
All right, thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public who would like to speak to this topic tonight? Councilors, any questions on this one?
Move approval.
Second, Brecky.
All right, motion approved by Selberg, seconded by Brecky. Discussion on the council? All right, we'll take a vote, please.
Councilmember Brecky? Erickson? Kylie? Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg? Sale?
Yes.
Starr? Staley?
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Item 50.
Item 50 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at the southwest corner of East Bison Trail and South Vineyard Avenue from the O Office District to the RD2 Townhome Residential Suburban District, number 11602, 2020, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. The Planning Commission recommends approval 6-0.
The applicant and owner here is Brady Hyde with Empire Homes. It's located southeast of the roundabout at 69th and Southeastern Avenue. It's about 0.79 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is the applicant is looking at constructing one 4-unit townhome and then possibly a 3 or 4 unit townhome on the northern lot. As you can kind of see by this overall map of the subdivision, the Emerald Valley second edition, staff does feel that this rezoning still provides that transition that we're looking for with as part of the comprehensive plan, single family to twin homes, to either office or townhomes, and then to the commercial as you get up to the intersection of 69th and Southeastern. We did have a neighborhood meeting that was held at Empire Homes' office on February 25th. The applicant was in attendance, 5 neighbors and myself. We had a good discussion. It was very cordial between the neighbors and the developer. They kind of laid out both their issues. We had one condition that kind of rose out of it that we would limit the developer to the 82 form and we wouldn't allow them at 83, so they couldn't go any more than a 4-unit townhome. However, the neighbors still had concerns, and I believe they're here tonight to kind of voice some of those concerns, specifically with the height of the proposed structures, having them be 2-story, and the existing neighborhood is more of a single-story to the east, and then there's some offices that were constructed as single-story units also.
All right, thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item tonight, please come forward. Come on up, sir. Good evening.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Tim Edmond, 6309 South Vineyard Avenue. For the sake of time and efficiency, I'm speaking on behalf of the other homeowners that have been here previously and are here this evening, and I think I just have 3 points to make. First point is, and Mr. Beaver alluded to this, we did meet with Empire Homes. It was cordial. We did not reach a compromise. We're still trying to find a compromise that balances quality and quantity, that balances the interests of the developer and the homeowners, but that's difficult to do. And when I think about it, there's really no incentive for the developer to compromise in terms of negotiating dynamics. I don't mean this literally, but figuratively. On one side of the table, you have the developer, the planning department recommendation, and the planning commission recommendation. And on the other side, you have us. So it's like 3 to 1. I can count. That's very difficult to overcome. That leads me to the second point. In terms of the process, I think I have found it to be, shall we say, less than neutral, less than balanced. And by that I mean, Empire Homes purchased this property a year ago. They still don't have a clear idea of how they want to develop the site within an RD2 zoning classification. But as we heard last week, well, 2 weeks ago, that site plan up there is strictly for, or was submitted strictly for illustrative purposes. When we met last week, we thought we received a better clarification of their intent on what they wanted to develop. Not that we necessarily agreed with it, but we thought we received a better clarification of what their intent was. But then 2 hours ago, I got an email saying that Empire Homes would like to also consider an 8-unit or an 8-plex option. So it's hard to find, again, that compromise when the picture keeps shifting. So that leads me to the third point, and that is what we'd like to ask you to consider this evening is postponing approval of the second reading. As I mentioned, Empire Homes purchased this property literally 12 months ago, February of 2019. I don't know if it was poor planning or whatever might have been the driving factor, but their application could have been submitted last fall. This could have been negotiated over the winter season. Simply bringing it to the council 2 months before the construction season starts, I don't think creates an urgency or a bias to support their application. What we'd like you to consider is basically giving us a little more time to reach some type of an agreement, hopefully, that will obviously impact our neighborhood for the next 30, 40, 50 years. So if it takes another 30, 40, or 50 days to resolve, but it has an impact of 30 or 40 or 50 years, I don't think we consider that unreasonable. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you, Tim. Anyone else here to speak on this item tonight? All right, councilors, do you have any questions for city staff on this one? Okay, is there a motion? Councilor Kiley?
I'll make a motion, and I've got a few comments, but motion to approve item 50.
Second, thanks, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor
motion to amend by inserting section 1 before track 7, Dakota Prairie Edition, and adding a new section 2 to read that the property legally described in section 1 and any future development should have the following regulation condition. AD3, attached dwelling suburban 8-unit townhome form is not allowed in this RD2 Townhome Residential Suburban District.
All right, there's a motion by Counselor Kelly to make that amendment. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Second by Counselor Staley. Counselor Kelly, you want to talk through that amendment?
Oh, yes, and I do appreciate having the ability to speak with Tim several times and meet with the mayor or with the neighborhoods on this particular topic. And I explained the difficulty with this right up front with the neighbors and with Tim the first time I spoke to him prior to the first reading. Shaped Places was put into place to bring consistency and clarity to the zoning. And I think we have been, as a council, been fairly consistent with the implementation of Shaped Places. And in this particular situation, the transition moves, if we're going from east to west, and it's on the screen now, it transitions from single-family homes to twin homes, to this property, which is office, which was, by the way, zoned office prior to this particular developer's purchase of that property. And then it progresses up to C2, commercial, to the west and a little bit to the north. So it is the type of transition that we actually are looking for. And on the compatibility scale, this is a 4 out of 5. So you don't get much better than this on the compatibility scale with the surrounding area. So it's, and the issue I know is 2 stories. However, if you put, even if it were zoned single family, you could construct 2-story single family homes. There's not a zoning that restricts buildings to just single stories. So the fact of the matter, if this were to remain office, you could put a 60,000 square foot office building in place, a 2-story office building on this site. And Jason can correct me if I'm wrong, there would actually be even less buffer than what the RD2 would have to offer. So this is what we typically refer to as a down zone. And for that reason, and the reason of being consistent, I'm going to support this proposal this evening.
All right, so we're on the amendment right there. And any other discussion on that amendment? So let's vote on that amendment.
Councilmember Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Selberg? Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
No.
Staley?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-1. So we're on to the amended main motion then. Discussion, Councilor Brecky.
Is this the appropriate time to make a motion to defer?
You can make a motion to defer.
Okay, I'd like to move to defer to March 17th. I realize that doesn't give them a lot of extra time, but you know, negotiations and having more time for negotiation never hurts anything. I don't think this is an unreasonable amount of extra time and is going to delay this project's ability to move forward. They're obviously been at the table. I think I'm, you know, persuaded by the fact that there is a difficult balance when you're kind of, you know, government's not on your side. So I just want to give all of the parties an extra opportunity, an extra week or two to, you know, see if they can't work out something that's a little more agreeable. I just don't see any harm can come from it.
All right, so we have a motion to defer to March 17th. Do I have a second for
Second.
that? Seconded by Councilor Staley. Councilor Neitzert.
I'm going to strenuously encourage and object to a deferral. If we can't pass this, I don't know what anybody in this city that's going to make any investment in the city is going to have any confidence that they can do anything. This is so simple. It's zoned office. It's zoned commercial. It's a down zone. If we deny it or he withdraws it, he can do something bigger than what is being proposed. Nothing comes to the council. They can just do it. He's voluntarily asking us to down zone the property. I honestly voted for the amendment because the builder is okay with it. I would have voted for this without it. I'm just mystified. I mean, if we're getting to the point where we're gonna start treating all residential as blighting on a neighborhood, we are in deep trouble. We're talking about we need housing, and we're throwing up roadblocks on things that there's no logical reason to be throwing up roadblocks to this. I'm mystified.
Other discussion on the council? Councilor Staley?
I'm just going to bring this up because Councilor Neitzer opened the door. But we are hearing this discussion over and over in our community about the pull that we have for, we do need more affordable housing, and we've got these vacant lots, and people are building new homes next to vacant lots, and we're starting to say buyer beware. I did go out with Councilor Kiley and met with these homeowners, and they told me that when they built their homes, purchased their homes, they were told by the realtor that that little sliver of land there was going to be the same kind of a residential development. And then, of course, they find out that it's going to be something else. Those of us who live in established neighborhoods, and Councilor Neitzer is one of them, he lives in a nice neighborhood. If we suddenly said, well, a house burnt down in your backyard, so now we're going to allow a 3-story apartment building in your backyard, I don't think he'd be happy with that. I don't think any established residential person in our community would be happy with that. We've got to find a balance of how we're going to grow. And I personally think Shaped Places has some areas that need to be tweaked. So we're throwing these apartment density apartment complexes in the midst of places where I'm not sure they belong. But because we're short on land. So anyway, I agree with Councilor Brecky. I say, it's the process. When we were talking with the homeowners, they were excited about meeting with the developer. That's not a bad thing to have compromise. So I'm going to support the deferral.
Councilor Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, one, I think that we should refrain from trying to use scare tactics, because if a home burnt down behind Councilor Zeitzer's house, it's a single lot, which would be a 3-story apartment, which would be an up zone. We're simply talking about a down zone. So I think that infusion of scare tactics of this could happen in your backyard really is not a fair assessment. I think it's important to know that land ownership means something. If I buy land, it's my private property. If I follow the rules that is public for everyone to see, that's my private property. My good friend Kermit Staggers, and former teacher, one thing you knew about him is he stood firm for property rights. And by property rights, it meant the person that bought the property. That ownership of the land in Sioux Falls, South Dakota means something. This is a big deal. If we can't get a little sliver downzoned, we're in big trouble of what we're telling this community. I don't know what you're going to build or where you're going to do it. Good luck, because you never know what you're going to bring in front of us. You just don't know what you're going to get. That's the point of Shaped Places, to put a plan in place, to have an idea of what it is. I do feel that there's compromise made. He's agreeing to make it be smaller than what he is. I'm sure he'd love to put more on there and maximize his investment. He's giving up a lot for that investment. We all know, I know this isn't one of the questions, but he built all the twin homes across the street too. So it's a good product. It all fits within the neighborhood. He's maintained those properties as well. And so to have this down zone, I'm also mind blown by that as well. I'm grateful for the meeting that was set up. These rezones don't happen in a week. It goes through the planning process. There's signs that go up. It's a 3-ish month process or more. And, we did, have this couple-week period in between as well to be able to meet. I'm grateful you did sit down and meet. It's unfortunate that everyone didn't come up with something that they were able to. But I tell you what, if I lived across the street and had a ginormous office space, I know I wouldn't be happy with that. I'd rather look over and see these nice, well-kept properties. And so for those reasons, I will not be voting to defer this either.
All right, on the deferral, take one more comment from Councilor Starr, and then we'll get back to the main motion too, if it's still there.
This is why I spend a lot of time with my kids going to these going through this process when we do rezoning, and trying to explain to my 12-year-old property rights is kind of interesting. You know, she says to me all the time, why can't they do what they want as part of their property? You know, they own their property. I get that. They own the property the way it's currently zoned. They bought it when it was zoned office. And they're asking us and the neighborhood and the city to make a change to what their property was zoned. So as owning a piece of property doesn't mean I get to build anything I want. It doesn't mean that I could build an office building, or I can threaten that, you know, I could build a 60,000 square foot office piece of there. What they're doing right now, going through this process, and you're right, it is a long process, Councilor Erickson, to go through. It has to go through the Planning Commission. It should have had some public meetings and neighborhood meetings before it gets through the Planning Commission, before it gets to us. So these kind of things can be worked out. I also agree with Councilor Neitzert. If we can't pass something like this, it's pretty simple of what they're doing. But what we're hearing from the neighbors, and we hear it consistently on these zoning changes, when an owner comes to us to change the zoning, they give us a proposed what they may do. There isn't, what Shape Places allows them to do a lot of different things, and we're putting conditions on this one. I get that. I voted against it because I don't think it needs that condition. But the bottom line is that you buy a piece of property, you know what it's zoned, and if you want to do something different with that piece of property, then you have to do it. So my point is, I'm going to end up supporting the deferral because I think that the neighborhood deserves that opportunity to continue to have that discussion. And if 2 weeks makes a big difference in this deal, the deal's probably not right to begin with.
All right, Councilor Brecky.
The reason for the deferral is because of the clarity. That I was compelled by the speaker who said, you know, they're not exactly clear. If they can give a little more clarity and definition, I just would feel more comfortable giving them 2 weeks to do that, and it would maybe be a less tough pill for this neighborhood to swallow. I don't see any harm that can come from it, so I don't think that, you know, I wasn't trying to throw a big wrench into things. I think we see where this is going. I understand that it's a down zone, and I don't want my action in deferring it to be misinterpreted. I mean, I understand that it's probably not complicated to pass. On the other hand, a little more time for the neighborhood to settle into it, and perhaps a little more clarity and understanding from the developer, if they have just a little more time to think about it, I think would make this go a little more smoothly.
All right, Clerk, we'll call in a vote on the motion to defer to March 17, please.
Councilmember Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
No.
Kylie?
No.
Neitzert?
No.
Selberg?
No.
Sale?
No.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
All right, the motion to defer fails 5-3, so we're at the amended main motion. And further discussion on that amended main motion. All right, we have a correct, Clerk, we have a motion, a second on the floor on the amended main motion, correct? Okay.
Yes.
By Councilor Kylie, seconded by Councilor Neitzert. So if there's no other discussion on it, Councilor Brecky?
One point quickly, there's nothing to stop that meeting from taking place anyway for the developer to offer a little more clarity and confidence in what he's doing to the neighborhood. So I would just put that out there to both the parties, that there's nothing to stop them from continuing to talk and give each other input on what happens on that piece of property.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll call in a vote on that amended main motion then.
Councilmember Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
No.
All right, that passes 7-1. Next item, please.
Next item is item 51, a second reading and ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota rezoning property located at 1507 South Norton Avenue from the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District to the RT2 Townhome Residential Traditional District number 11601-2020, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. The Planning Commission recommends approval 6-0.
Excuse me. The applicant and owner is Cindy Wolcher. It's located at 1507 South Norton Avenue. It's roughly 0.13 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is we're looking to match the correct zoning with the current use of the property. Looking back through the records, we did find that this house had been legally converted to a 3-unit converted house back in 1996. We did do some field studies of it just to make sure that that's the way it functioned. And it does function as a 3-unit house. There is a bedroom to the basement, and that actually can only be accessed from the outside. And then if you go in the main door, there's two separate units within the main house.
All right, thank you, Jason. Anyone from the public who would like to speak to this item tonight? All right, counselors, do you have any questions for Jason on this item?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Selberg. Motion approved by Erickson and seconded by Selberg. Discussion, council? All right, we'll take a vote on this, please.
Councilmember Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Star?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 52.
Item 52 is a second reading and ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota rezoning property located at northwest corner of East 26th Street and South Veterans Parkway from the O Office District to the S1 General Institutional District, number 11-596-2020, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0.
The applicant and owner here is Avera McKinnon. It's located at the northwest corner of East 26th Street and South Veterans Parkway, just south of the Dolly Farm development. It's about 6.29 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is Avera is looking to construct a future Avera Mechanic Clinic building on the property, similar to the one on 69th and Cliff.
All right, thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Good evening.
Can we get the?
Yep, we'll get it. You bet.
I'm David Zalkaitis, and I have just a few comments on agenda item 52. I'd like to congratulate Avera on their environmental awareness and their use of trees in their landscaping. Good job.
That's it? All right. Record. Anyone else want to speak on this item tonight?
I'll move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Kylie.
Motion approved by Erickson, seconded by Kylie. Any discussion on this, council? All right, we'll take a vote on it, please.
Councilmember Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Star? Staley?
Yes.
That passes 8-0. We'll move on to item 53.
Item 53 is a second reading and ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, approving the amendment to an extension of the lease of city property to WR Restaurants Management, LLC.
Good evening, Sean Pritchett with Finance. This is primarily a house cleaning item, so again, in follow-up to last week's discussion, this relates to the lease of land with WR Restaurants Management, LLC. This is the diner downtown. We are at the end of our first 15-year lease with them. They had the option on their end to exercise a 5-year renewal extension of this lease, and then it would conclude at the end of 20 years for renegotiation thereafter. Primarily, we're just doing the amendment to bring the non-discrimination statement in compliance with current ordinance.
All right, thank you, Sean. Anyone from the public who would like to speak to this item? All right, councilors, do you have any questions for Sean on it?
Move to. Second, Kylie.
All right, motion approved by Selberg, seconded by Kylie. Any discussion, councilors? We'll take a vote.
Councilmember Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Star?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 54.
Item 54 is a first reading deferred from the meeting of Tuesday, February 11th, 2020, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, providing supplemental appropriations for the Entertainment Tax Fund.
Good evening, Scott.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor. Scott Rust, Finance Department. Tonight we have the supplemental appropriation first reading for the design of the parapet and cornice for the Washington Pavilion. I'd like to cover a little bit of the exterior work that has been done with the Washington Pavilion. This will be a little bit of review from the informational meeting. But again, the building itself, the envelope of the building is in pretty good shape. Obviously, it's been repointed, windows have been replaced, New roofing's been installed. The ephes around the lobby has obviously been refinished. A lot of structural concerns in the facility have been addressed. Again, mechanical, electrical upgrades have been completed. The east retaining wall was just completed last summer, along with the new canopy and those nice LED lights on the outside. And then a lot of terracotta has been replaced on the building. Just to educate the public and for the folks in the audience here tonight, I want to talk a little bit about what is a parapet, what is a cornice. Again, the cornice piece that I have the mouse on right here, this is the cornice of the building. These are called the dentils of the cornice. The parapet itself is this top structure that lays on top of the cornice. It's on top of the roof section of the building. And these things here are called balusters, and this is just obviously just a rail. Here's a diagram of how it is constructed on the building. Again, you'll see this cornice piece is tied in place by a lot of steel. It's reinforced here, and it's held with these ties on the building. This is the piece that we're looking to replace here, along with this parapet here. Reasons we're replacing them, obviously this parapet has been deteriorated over time. It dates back to the early 1940s, I believe, is when it was installed on the building. Again, full of cracks. It's been caulked many, many times. It's not cheap to caulk. Again, what's happened is moisture's infiltrated the stone, or I should say terracotta, and has caused it to crack and leak, and the water is infiltrating into the building. So our proposal is tonight, obviously, is for funding to start the design work to begin to replace this architectural feature on the building. We went through multiple recommendations from our consultant engineer architect, ARC Inc. We looked at many different materials. Obviously, we reached out to Gage Brothers. Their material is obviously too heavy for the building, being the precast concrete. We looked at cast stone. Again, very expensive, very heavy. And then we also looked at terracotta. Again, there's only 2 manufacturers left in the United States that make terracotta. Again, very, very expensive. We made a trip to Cleveland. They have a lot of architectural old buildings. You'll see a lot of these here. A lot of them are, these architectural features have all been replaced in these buildings, and they've been replaced with fiberglass. This is the standard replacement in the historic district of Cleveland. It has been approved by their historical organizations over there. But again, as you'll notice here, you really can't tell the difference. That it's not terracotta, it's not cast stone or anything like that. It's actually a fiberglass product. So again, the funding request tonight is for $355,000 to start the design work, come up with some sort of estimate from ARC Inc., what it's going to cost to replace. Again, we have some ideas what it's going to cost, rough ideas. Again, we're going to try and design some options for the council to consider with this funding here. So again, we think that we can definitely take this product will last, again, at easily 50 to 60 years based on the information and the research that we have done. Fiberglass has been in the building trade world for quite some time, and again, we don't feel that it's, we feel that it is actually the best option for us to move forward with. I'm going to take a look at the Entertainment Tax Fund. This is a very large project for the Entertainment Tax Fund. There's no doubt about it. You don't obviously take a project like this very lightly. You obviously have to plan for it, and we've done a very good job planning for it. Again, you'll see some of the bigger projects that we have scheduled with the Entertainment Tax Fund. With the Event Center coming online, the Event Center has a lot of fan amenities in them that do cost a lot of money. They are still planned here. But here we are. If we do move forward with the cornice and parapet replacement, this is where we feel the funding will be, and there will be a funding there to obviously take care of the Event Center needs. Some other needs that are out there that are still in this plan, that aren't shown on that graph, but are still in the budget forecasted model that we have. You know, obviously LED lighting upgrades at the convention center will still take place. Expansion joint and dasher board replacements at the event center. LED lighting upgrade inside of the Washington Pavilion. Event center, again, here we get into the front end video display upgrade replacement. HVAC upgrades for the convention center, more sound system replacements in the pavilion. Again, vestibule refurbishments, and there we end up with the river board, center hung, and video board replacement upgrades. Our timeline on this project, if funding is approved, we'd like to initiate design shortly after the approval here, and then start through design process summer through fall with bidding, possibly late 2020 or early 21. You know, again, that won't happen until the council's had a chance to review the plans and give us the way forward as far as which direction the city would like to take to replace this parapet, cornice, or both. With that, I went through that, covered it pretty quick. Again, I tried to be as concise as possible, but I'd like to open it up for some questions.
All right, thank you, Scott. First, I'll see if anyone from the public is here to speak on this topic tonight. All right, councilors, you have questions for Scott on this. Councilor Sale?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Scott, Sean Pritchard's been nice enough to forward me some information, and I'm looking at the bids from AE on this. The construction cost, they are going to receive a percentage of the total cost for their fee. Is that correct?
Yeah, typically the AE firms get a percentage of what the cost of, they feel the estimate of the project is going to be. So that's where the $355,000 comes from.
$350,000 is, to me, it's a pretty large number for any kind of architecture. You know, that's 4 full-time people for a year, in my estimation. And in there, they also talk about the fiberglass material. They make a recommendation, as you have done, that fiberglass should be replaced there. I will ask that before any final decision is made, that we have cost estimates put in front of us to replace with exactly the same thing that is up there today, so that we know exactly what we're buying when we do this.
Absolutely.
And as you say, and I probably agree that it's probably going to be a lot more expensive, but we know how long that is going to last.
Right.
We have a history, and I'm not the biggest fiberglass fan in the world, I will tell you right now. I have some concerns in your estimates for the entertainment tax. You haven't put anything in there for the task force and what Jeff Eichhoff is doing out at the arena, the Denny Sanford, because there's possibly some large expenditures there that could be coming out of our entertainment tax too.
Right, right. Again, you know, we're focused right now on the R&M. Again, those recommendations haven't come forth. We haven't started any of those with those consultants coming forward to make those recommendations yet. So, okay.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
Scott gave us, we had a very comprehensive presentation at the informational, and Councilor Sale, what I heard, and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but that putting the terracotta back up was going to be a big challenge. Because
it would actually be a very big challenge. It is going to be very expensive. As I said, there's only 2 manufacturers left in the United States, and there are, you know, a handful of installers left too, you know, that can probably do it. But again,
but I thought that who gave us the presentation?
Arc Inc. gave us the presentation.
And they were saying that apparently, I mean, the fastening mechanism has warped, that it was going to be hard to actually fasten that terracotta back onto the main part of the building. Is what I
Right, you would
heard.
actually have to replace those steel structures.
It was so
attachment points in there.
because
yeah.
water had deteriorated the fasteners. So I agree with Councilor Sale. I think it would be a good comparison. But here is the fiberglass right here from the company. Now, what I want is I want a warranty. I want a solid warranty on the workmanship of and the product itself. Because you said you're not a fan of fiberglass, Councilor Sale. How long is this going to last? And we saw with the event center siding and the event, what's the one in Minneapolis that they're replacing the siding on? I mean, they got a warranty on theirs. In Minneapolis, same company put it on. They're getting their siding replaced under a warranty. In Sioux Falls here, well, we just, what the heck? We don't just do it, and we'll pick up the tab if it doesn't hold up. So I down the road, my understanding, if we pass this design part, the council will still be able to have a say. You're going to come back with ordinances to actually approve the product. Is that right?
Well, again, they'll be coming back with recommendations on going forward with a design approving the design for either replacing the cornice and the parapet, or any other option that they are able to come up with. The specifications, again, we'll do what we can, obviously, with manufacturers that are available out there to get the greatest warranty we can for the city of Sioux Falls.
Right, in writing. I mean, I would think.
Obviously, we're going to bid that into our specifications.
I mean, when I had my siding replaced on my garage, you know, I got a permanent, I got it like, I think, a 20-year warranty. So we should be able to at least get that from the company when we're paying, you know, $6 million to do this. The other thing is the entertainment tax, and I was talking with a constituent about this, and maybe Sean, you'd be the one to answer this, but what's our revenue on that? An annual revenue on that third penny is?
Yeah, I talked about this in the informational. I want to say it was eight something million that we received in 2019.
So how is this, when we're talking about having this 5 to 7 million, how is that going to be one chunk in 1 year? Because that would take the whole entertainment tax.
What we programmed into our model was we put another $1 million into this year, anticipating that some of this would get a little bit front loaded, and $5 million into next year. So I think we have an ending balance of around $6 million at the end of this year. And so it does have an existing balance. We'll continue to take in funds for next year, and it's just programmed based on what we have for expenditures we think is going to be going out of that account over the next several years. So we are looking at it at 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years. You know, the further you get out, the harder it is to project out exactly.
Would you ever bond for something like this?
Not for something of this nature where it's the entertainment tax fund can support it based on the model. And typically for a maintenance project like this, and it truly is a maintenance of the building, we wouldn't try to it wouldn't be our first option for this particular project. I mean, the entertainment tax has supported the Washington Pavilion, you know, and been a key piece of that, and that's why we're modeling out this as part of that going forward. So.
And they also said that the bulk of this cost is going to be the labor. So that was part of the conversation that.
Yeah, when we had the conversation at the informational, we kind of talked about the fact that, you know, the parapet being more aesthetic than maybe structural, whereas the cornice is really important to the structure itself. And them coming back and looking at those two options and saying, okay, what does it cost in addition to put the parapet back on, which is it has a historical components, but maybe more aesthetic. What I suggested is just to be careful that we don't expect that that's going to drop $3 million off the price, because we kind of looked at those options, and a lot of it is the actual removal of the existing parapet and taking down the existing cornice, the stone, all of that, the labor, and the intensity of doing that is going to be a significant portion of this cost.
Any other questions for Scott or for Sean? Councilor Sale?
One more question in.
Sure.
Councilor Staley reminded me to ask, based on the roof repair that was done, I believe, in 2015, and when I look at the report and look at the pictures, they found moisture under that underlayment. Do we have a warranty on the work that was done at that time?
Again, that roof, that rubber membrane was put on the flat roof. It was not replaced. The piece that you're talking, that underlayment there, was not replaced during that roof replacement. We're just talking the flat roof, the rubber membrane that was put on the top of the building.
So they're two separate things?
They are, yep.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Other questions? Councilor Kiley?
Really not so much questions, but comments. I know that during the informational, we did request options. such as just the replacement of the cornice and the dentals. What would the cost be? Replacement of the cornice, the dentals, and the parapet with the number of balusters that are currently there. Maybe then another option, reducing the number of balusters, since structurally we do not with the new material. We don't need as many balusters as what exists there. So consider reducing that a third or by 50%. But also maybe consider what the cost would be if we implemented these options over a period of time versus doing it all at once. And how does that impact our overall costs then too?
Sure. I mean, you bring up a good point, and you could bid it as an alternate, you know, as, okay, what would it cost to put the parapet up as an alternate? You could, and if it didn't fit in the budget, you could bring it back a few years later if you wanted to, and add it again. Again, the more we go out, the more it does cost. The big thing here is, though, if you had to put the parapet back up, if the council decided not to put it back up, could it be put up later? Yes, it could. Again, you're talking about probably having to bring in some lifts and things like that to put it up, but again, it could probably be done. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And providing that the cornice and the dentals are designed for the addition of a parapet at a later time. Thank you.
You bet.
Would someone like to make a motion, set a date of second reading for Tuesday, March 10?
Move to approve.
Second, Brecky.
All right, motion by, let's see, I'm going to give that to Counselor Kiley, seconded by Counselor Brecky on that. Further discussion amongst council on this? All right, we'll call for a vote on it, please.
Councilmember Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson? Kiley?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Elberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Bailey?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 55.
Item 55 is a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, repealing subchapter Sioux Falls Veteran Park Advisory Board of Chapter 95 Parks and Recreation of the Code of Ordinances of said city.
Good evening, Mike.
Thank you, Council. Mayor Mike Patton with Parks and Recreation. This item is an ordinance that would effectively repeal the Sioux Falls Veterans Memorial Park Advisory Board. And with that, I've got a short presentation to go over some of the history of the board, development, operations of the park, and then we have a couple of board members here to speak as well. The board was created by ordinance in December of 2001 with the responsibility to advise the Parks and Recreation Board, the Director of Parks and Recreation, the Mayor, and City Council regarding the design, construction, and operation of the park. It is a 5-member board, 4 of which must be veterans, and I've got a list up there with all the past board members. If you know any of them, you know the honor we've had of meeting and getting to know these people and work with them over the years. The park was developed originally in 2001. It began with a master plan for the park, and for the next 6 years, various phases of construction ranging from demolition through earthwork, physical site features, and then some of the aesthetic features you see out there today. Since 2007, there's been some miscellaneous small projects, mostly involving sculpture placements, small landscaping projects, and we've also done some planning work that would allow for a future entrance feature to be created if that opportunity comes up. I will note that the park has received a couple of awards over the years, both from the American Society of Landscape Architecture. These are design and built awards, which just speak to the success of the design in the park itself. As far as the operation of the park, all maintenance procedures are performed by the city. So mowing, landscaping, cleaning, restrooms, all of that. And that includes both the sale and installation of the commemorative pavers that you may have seen if you've been through the park. The Veterans Advisory Board helped establish the park's rules and regulations that are incorporated into the park's policies and guidelines. The annual Flag Day celebration that happens out there is coordinated by city staff, and then any events that happen out there in the park have to go through the city's special events process. Over the past few years, we've kind of struggled to find agenda items for the meetings. Like I mentioned, the park is fully built out and all maintenance is kind of a well-oiled machine that happens by city staff. And because of that, the board felt they had fulfilled their mission as it pertains to the roles of the board, and voted unanimously to dissolve the Veterans Memorial Park Advisory Board. The Park and Recreation Board also supported their decision in December and voted unanimously to recommend dissolving of the board. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Rick Tupper and Brian Vognan. They're going to share a little bit about their experience on the board and their decision to dissolve.
All right, thanks, Mike. Good evening, Rick.
Good evening. My name is Rick Tupper. I come before you tonight as a proud veteran, also as the past president and a current board member of the Veterans Memorial Park Advisory Board. I was given the honor of serving on this board in 2011. You know, at that time, the park was really, in the big scheme of things, pretty new. And so I had the opportunity to actually serve with some of the founders that had a vision for this park. And one that always comes to mind is Larry Ritz. And if you knew Larry, Larry was a World War II veteran. He had a passion for military and veterans affairs and was truly a staunch advocate for everything Sioux Falls. When this group had a vision for Veterans Memorial Park, they wanted to create a special place. And if you've ever had an opportunity to walk onto Arlington National Cemetery or had the chance to go to Omaha Beach and walk the cemetery there, you know what I'm talking about as a special place. This park was not designed to be a place to go picnic, was not a place to have your children go play ball. It was truly a place to go reflect on what it means to be an American. It doesn't matter where you were born, doesn't matter the color of your skin, doesn't matter how you identify yourself. Everybody that walks onto that park is an American. And the park was truly designed to reinforce that principle of patriotism, everything that kind of binds our country together. But even more important, that park was truly designed as a place to pay respect for the men and women that serve our country and those that have served our country. So as you walk on that park, and I hope you've all had the opportunity to, you can see the Medal of Honor Garden. Every person there is somebody from our area. You can read the heroic stories that those people were a part of our history. As you walk across that pedestrian bridge, you're going to see the fountain spraying water into the beautiful Sioux Falls skies. You can walk to the paver garden, which truly is a history book in itself, reading the names that are there. And then there's the design of the park with the stars. That is the logo that we chose for the park. If you look at those stars, each of those stars represent a shining star, which is some of the brightest and most amazing people our country can push forward. But then you also see that there's one star missing. And that star represents all of those who gave everything they have so that we can all be sitting here tonight as a free nation. So that park really is truly a special place. So when the advisory board was established, the mission was to create that special place. And while I can't tell you that that mission will ever truly be finished, I do think that the advisory board has fulfilled what it was meant to be. And right now, I think the advisory board is asking to pass that torch on. And we want to pass that torch on to the men and women of the Sioux Falls Parks and Recreation Department, and ultimately to you and those that come after you. And we don't just simply want to pass this torch on for you to maintain a park. We ask that you maintain and showcase this special place, a place that was designed to bring Americans together, a place to pay respect. So we're asking you to take that torch and carry on from there. And just from what I've seen tonight, you know, I guess I want to, first of all, thank each of you for your dedication to this community, and that dedication and the passion that you all show does not go unnoticed. So carry on. Thank you.
Rick, thank you. All right, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item tonight? Is that, I'm sorry, Mike, was Brian going to speak as well?
Brian's going to speak, but if anybody has any questions, we can
Got it.
certainly
Sounds good. Thanks, Mike. Anyone from the public wish to speak to this topic tonight? Counselors, do you have any questions for Rick or Brian or Mike on this? Counselor Erickson?
No questions, but Rick, thank you for your words. I mean, just sitting here today, you know, just noticing some of the reactions in the crowd of people wanting to clap, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. Certainly gives chills. Thank you for your service and anyone that has served. This is a special place, and I just really thank you for your kind words tonight and your service to all the board members that have seen this vision through. And I think this city will gladly take that torch and make sure it stays a special place for all Americans. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Kiley.
And I too would just like to thank the Veterans Park Advisory Board for a job well done. Maybe mission accomplished up to this point, but we're still working on that mission. Been to many functions at this, expect to be at many more functions at this very special place. So, but it's there due to your efforts. So, thank you.
Counselor Selberg.
Yeah, well, you always hope you're first on things like this, because I want to say probably the exact same thing. Thank you very much for that speech. That was fantastic, Rick, and to all the people that served on this board and what you've done. Well done indeed. So anyway, that was one of the more inspiring parts of the evening. Thank you.
Counselor Brecky.
I'd like to follow suit. I remember when you used to walk into City Hall, when you looked to the right, when you walked into City Hall, there was a marquee with some of the, you know, honoraria for it was either World War I or World War II veterans. And that was just one place where some of the veterans were celebrated. It was scattered all about the city. And there was no clear message or no clear memorial to support all of the efforts. And when this idea for this concept for a park came forward, it was just such a glorious idea. And to see it followed through in such a way is extremely meaningful, that we got all those things from all around the city and are honoring them now appropriately, and it's just beautiful. And again, thank you for, again, your kind words. I did what everybody else says, and it's a sense of accomplishment, a sense of finality to see that we're doing a better job of honoring those who've served us so well.
All right, look for a motion, set a date of second reading for Tuesday, March 10.
Move to approve.
Second, Erickson.
All right, motion by Kiley, seconded by Erickson on that. We'll go ahead and take a vote on this, please.
Councilmembers Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Rick, you got to top those remarks at second reading, okay? Can you do that? All right, we'll move on to item 56.
Item 56 is a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, authorizing interim water rates for certain customers outside the City of Sioux Falls, Prairie Meadow area.
Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for having us tonight. With me is Chad Heavey, our city engineer, Diane Best, Assistant City Attorney, and Jeff Davis with Prairie Meadows. Items 56, 57, and 58 all come together. They are all involving the Prairie Meadows neighborhood. This is really the results of looking at an old challenge with a new lens. This first item, item 56, it's the only part of this that's an ordinance, so it's the first reading. Second reading will be on March 10th. It's really a complement to item 57 that we'll go through in a little bit more detail. But what it allows for is if we're going to have a property that's outside of the city limits, if we put the map and or an address in this ordinance, it allows us to have them afford city water at in-city rates. And so that's what this first item involves. It's our recommendation to authorize this. It's a part of the larger structure that we'll talk a little bit more in item 57.
All right, thank you, Mark. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item tonight? All right, councilors, any questions on this specific item 56?
Move to approve. Oh, sorry.
A motion approved by Kylie.
And I'll second.
All right, seconded by Neitzer. Councilor Neitzer.
Apologize, I haven't read the verbiage. Does it have an automatic, how does the sunsetting happen? You know, like if they weren't to do the things that they need to do, is there an automatic sunset clause in it, or?
There is. So it affords them in-city rates for up to 18 months from the date of the closing of the joint powers agreement, which we'll talk about in item 57.
Okay, so the stipulation in the ordinance will follow what the things that we're talking about, that if they do X, Y, and Z, then
that's correct.
It will continue, otherwise it will revert and they will no longer. Okay.
That's right.
So there wouldn't be any action required of a future council. It'll automatically happen one way or the other with this ordinance.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah, it also allows, if we are successful and come together and write the annexation plan within 18 months, there's language in this ordinance that allows it to extend an extra 30 months.
Okay. Besides, obviously, an approval of a pre-annexation agreement by a council and an annexation, if hopefully that comes together.
That's right.
So, thanks.
All right. Any other questions for Mark on this item? Councilor Steele?
But, so Mark, just to clarify, they're going to be getting city rates, and then if this doesn't work, then they're going to be charged out of city rates.
That's right. By ordinance today, if you are outside of the city, but you take city water, you pay the water rates times 2.5. So it's a 2.5 multiplier if you're outside. Part of this overall structure, we're recommending that they, for the first 18 months, as we work together for a pre-annexation plan, that they would not only get water rates at in-city rates, but also wastewater rates.
So the city council would approve that pre-annexation plan.
That's exactly right. Yep.
And the city is then going to be taking on the maintenance of their badly deteriorated pipes, right?
That's in the, this is a companion item. We'll get into that a little bit more detail in item 57.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, let's vote on 56, because I think a lot of the meat is in 57. So really, we just need a second reading for Tuesday, March 10. I need a motion on that.
You have it.
Oh, I have it. I'm sorry. And sorry, seconded by Councilor Neitzer on that. All right, let's call for a vote on that, please.
Councilmember Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Hilberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr? Yes. Staley?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. And item 57, the resolution on this.
Item 57 is a resolution approving a joint powers agreement between the Prairie Meadow Sanitary District and the City of Sioux Falls.
All right, this builds off the informational presentation that we did just last week. There was a fact sheet done. There's more fact sheets by the door, and each counselor hopefully got one of those last week. Just a quick overview for those that are watching. The City of Sioux Falls operates a wastewater system with over 56,000 customers. Just based on the size and resources, we're able to provide reliable service, but also very stable rates. The Prairie Meadows area is generally in the southeast area of the Ellis Road and 41st Street. Prairie Meadows Sanitary District has been a customer of the City of Sioux Falls since 1976, and there's about 75 customers in that area in that sanitary district. They get their water today from Minnehaha Community Water Corporation. This is really on the end of their line, and actually we are the source water for their system, and so the City of Sioux Falls charges their system in 1 meter, and then they distribute it to these customers. The item 58 that we'll talk about is not only will we move forward or recommend to move forward on the district's request for us to take over their sanitary district, but we also have worked with Minnehaha Community Water Corporation to take over the water side of this utility as well. One of the key things is that this sanitary district was planning to do an upgrade of their wastewater system for a number of years. They did qualify for a substantial grant with that rehabilitation. Just based on a number of challenges, they've not moved forward with that reconstruction. And so, as we talked about, this is really looking at this problem with a new lens, and Mike Schilling and Jeff Davis came in, and we really just tried to brainstorm and said, what's one step we could take to actually move forward, because we've talked about annexation for a long time. And one of the outcomes came as Jeff had said, if we could move forward and have the city take over the wastewater system and get that behind us, that would be a huge step forward. Then we can just ultimately focus on annexation. So that brainstorming idea, that idea that Jeff had, we kind of started to put pen to paper, and ultimately some of the key points of that agreement are that the city of Sioux Falls would move forward to take over their ownership of their sanitary district. Over the course of the next 18 months, we would have teams from both Prairie Meadows and the city work together and draft a pre-annexation agreement. They did qualify for a pretty substantial grant for the rehabilitation. They did make a request to turn that, change the scope of that grant from rehabilitation of their system to a connection fee with the city. And so the way that looks is that we would send them a bill by the end of March for $1 million for a connection fee. There's a 20% in-kind match, which we'll recognize as in-place assets, in-place easements, and documented studies that they have. And the DNR will provide $800,000 in those grant funds to the city of Sioux Falls. They today have an accrued debt of just over $151,000. $37,000 of that is principal. The balance is finance charges over a series of years. We'll cure that debt with a lump sum payment of $50,000. We talked about that we would afford them interim in-city rates while we do this 18-month discovery and development of an annexation plan. And then if that is ultimately accepted and approved by this body, they'll be afforded an additional 30 months of in-city rates. If we don't come together and develop this annexation agreement after 18 months, this joint powers agreement will terminate. Their water rates will go up by a factor of 2.5, and their sewer rates will go up by a factor of 2. So that's really the key points of the agreement. I know Jeff Davis is here. They did have a meeting and voted on the terms of the deal, and would invite him up here if he'll afford that.
All right, thank you, Mark. Yeah, Jeff, go ahead, come forward, please. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to tell you that Prairie Meadows, we appreciate the opportunity to work with the city on this kind of on the basis that we're going forward now, and everybody's real positive about this. So we're hoping to see the kind of outcome, pre-annexation agreement, develop the neighborhood. We want to be part of the city, and we want to have nice streets, and through the annexation task force adjustments, it'll allow us to answer some of the objections that the residents have, and I think this is a good, viable agreement. We're contributing our part on the front end, so we don't have to, you don't have to feel like we're asking for something for nothing. The about $1 million will get us a viable management. Mark Cotter's group is excellent. We need that kind of management group and a backup for a sewer system. And so I think it's a great deal for everybody. The meeting was positive. Teresa Staley was there, Councilor Staley was there, and we had no issues with this whatsoever. So I'm hoping to have the same kind of success going forward. We agreed at the meeting to break up into groups to design our own annexation plan that matches the options that are available from the city now. So I don't see any, there'll be issues, but I don't see anything that can't be worked through. But I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. If you got any questions,
Thank you, Jeff. We'll see if there's any public input. I know this has been a huge lift for Prairie Meadows, for the city, so thanks for all your work that you put into this too. So
appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll see if there's any public input or any public comments on this item. All right, councilors, do you have any questions for Jeff or for Mark on this? Councilor Selberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know that I have any questions. I just wanted to throw out some special kudos because it's been my understanding, I think the first time that you guys sat down to meet on this was 7 years ago, if that's correct. So it's been a while, so. Okay. Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah, special kudos to you. I know Director Cotter, and I think I saw our former Director Cooper here too. I don't know that he's still here, but he played a big part in this too. But I know I've known Jeff here for a couple of years since I've been on the council, and a very forward thinker and get things done too. So anyway, my point was kudos to all of you for fruition of 7 years of hard work. Nice job.
All right, and is there a motion to be made on this item?
Move to approve.
Second. Brecky.
All right, motion approved by Kylie, seconded by Councilor Brecky. Any discussion, council? All right, we'll take a vote on this, please.
Councilmember Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson? Yes. Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Milberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. We'll move on to our next item.
Item 58 is a resolution approving a water agreement between Minnehaha Community Water Corporation and the City of Sioux Falls.
All right, this is the third item. As we grow, we often grow into the Minnehaha Community Waters territory, and so we have a master agreement that has a buyout provision, so they get compensated for those customers. We're just moving forward with that same agreement. We've captured the Prairie Meadows properties in an agreement. Minnehaha Community Water Corporation has already voted and approved on this, and so with your support, this will complete the first stage of this transaction.
All right, thanks, Mark. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item? Councilors, any questions for Mark on it?
Move to approve.
Second, Nitzert.
Motion approved by Kylie, seconded by Nitzert. Any discussion? All right, we'll vote on this one, please.
Councilmember Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson? Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 59.
Item 59 is a resolution of intent to enter into a lease of municipal real property.
Stacy.
These are the annual leases that the city enters into. There are 42 leases listed, and these are notices of intent. They are not the terms of the leases themselves. It's pursuant to SDCL 9-12-5.2.
Thank you, Stacy. Anyone from the public who would wish to speak to this item? Councilor, any questions for Stacy on this? Councilor Starr?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. City Attorney, I guess, and this is probably going to be tougher for you. I'm not sure who this question will be best directed, but we'll start here. Why do we own these pieces of property? I know there's some varying background when you go through the list of some larger tracts of land and some smaller tracts, but are there future uses for each one of these, or are they some that we've acquired over the years that we should be looking at selling or putting back into public use?
At the risk of speaking out of school, there are likely 42 different stories for why we own those 42 pieces of property, and I'm not equipped to explain those.
Nope, I'm just looking for a general answer to,
Well, I think, statutorily, we're required to put the public on notice that, so there's an opportunity for people to review that. But as far as individual properties, I'm just not familiar with those or their uses. So, when we've talked about some individually, of course, like the annex building and even the Phillips Diner properties. So these are the ones that, for efficiency's sake, they combine because they're relatively standard. But again, I don't have an itemized.
Well, I think that's, if you don't mind, I guess it's one of those things we've tried to look and put a list like this together. So it's kind of, this gives us that list of properties we own in one spot as well. So
correct, and they are posted on Sire. So
decent resource. Thank you.
Any other questions for Stacy on this item? I look for a motion on it.
Move to approve, Brecky.
Anybody want to second that, baby?
Second Sale.
All right, seconded by Councilor Sale. Any other discussion, council? All right, we'll take a vote, please.
Councilmember Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg? Sale?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. We'll move on to item 61.
Item 61 is a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls approving the preliminary plan of Sanford Edition 11603-2020. The Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0.
The applicant and owner here is Sanford Health. It's located at the northeast corner of East 57th Street and South Veterans Parkway. It's about 53 acres in size. The future of this preliminary plan, so they're looking at constructing a future clinic and then kind of selling the rest of the property for future commercial and institutional development.
All right, thank you, Jason. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this one tonight? All right, council, do you have questions for Jason on it?
Move to approve.
Approve.
Second.
Brecky.
Oh, too much going on there. I'm going to give the motion to Kylie, seconded to Brecky. And any discussion, council? All right, we'll take a vote on it, please.
Councilmember Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg, Sale,
Yes.
Starr, Staley.
All right, passes 7-0. Item 62.
Item 62 is a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls approving the preliminary plan of the Crown at Arbor's Edge Edition 11604-2020. The Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0.
This is a preliminary subdivision plan that goes along with the rezoning in item 46. This is the Arbor's Edge Edition, just located just east of Willow Run Golf Course. They're just looking at subdividing this for 28 additional residential lots, and that would finish out that existing subdivision.
All right, thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public here to speak on this one tonight? Councilors, any questions for Jason on this?
Move approval.
Second, Brecky.
All right, motion approved by Selberg, seconded by Brecky. Any discussion? We'll take a vote.
Councilmember Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson, Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr, Staley.
Yes.
Passes 8-0. Item 63.
Item 63 is a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls approving the preliminary plan of Sundance Ridge Edition 11606-2020. The Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0.
The applicant here is Eric Wilson. The owner is Gary Haar. This is the 204 acres located at the southwest corner of East 26th Street and South Veterans Parkway. They're doing the preliminary subdivision plan to start constructing the residential office and commercial development on those 200-plus acres.
Thank you, Jason. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this one? Councilors, any questions on this?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Brecky.
All right, motion approved by Erickson, seconded by Brecky. Discussion, council? We'll vote, please.
Councilmember Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr, Staley.
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Item 64.
Item 64 is a resolution advising and giving consent to the appointment of members to certain citizen boards, those being Board of Health, Dr. Mike Peckus, Renee Vink, Falls Community Center Governing Board, Patricia Bolds and Madeline Shields, Infrastructure Review Advisory Board, Aaron Meyer, Solid Waste Planning Board, Ron Salby, and Cindy Neuroth.
All right, anyone from the public wish to speak on these items? Any of those people here tonight? All right, look for a motion on it.
Move to approve, Brecky.
Second, Kylie.
Motion approved by Brecky, seconded by Kylie. Any discussion? Councilor Starr.
Yes, I was just curious if we have bios or any background on who these people are before we provide advice and consent. I know several of them, but, you know, in the past, we've gotten at least a couple of sentences of who they are and why they're qualified for the position.
We don't have that tonight. That can certainly be provided in the future if that's desired.
Yeah, I asked for it yesterday. I did send an email and ask for that information, so.
To who did you send it to?
Your chief of staff, the city clerk, I believe our legislative person was included as that as well.
Any other discussion on this? All right, let's take a vote.
Councilmember Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson, Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
No.
Staley.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-1. Next item.
Item 65, notice the transfer of appropriations on the memorandum dated December 31st, 2019.
All right, any new business, council?
Move to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
Motion to adjourn by